Body fluids in circulation, chapter 18. The very first paragraph, there is nothing much important. Only thing is that simple organisms like sponges and coelentrates, that is important. The way sponges and coelentrates circulate is written through their surroundings, through the body cavities to facilitate the cells to exchange these substances. That is important. And blood are the lymph as a source of transport of certain substances in humans as well as higher level of organisms. Moving on to the very first topic, blood. Blood is a fluid connective tissue which is consisting of a fluid matrix, plasma and formed elements. Moving on to plasma. Plasma is a straw colored viscous fluid which is nearly 55% of the blood, and in that 55, 90 to 92% is water. Baki, the 6 to 8% is actually protein. Fibrinogens, globulins and albumins are the major proteins. Now, fibrinogen is considered as the clotting factor and globulins is considered as the involved in the defense mechanism of the body. Albumin is maintained osmotic balance. It helps in the osmotic balance. So, plasma also contains certain amount of minerals like sodium, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate, chlorine, etc. Glucose, amino acid and lipids too. They are also present in the plasma as they are always in the transit body. Now, another important factor is that factors for coagulation or clotting of blood are also present in the plasma in an inactive form. Plasma minus clotting factor is equal to serum. That is, plasma without clotting factor is the serum. Now moving on to the formed elements. Erythrocytes, leukocytes and platelets are collectively known as formed elements. They are almost 45% of the blood. Erythrocytes, which means RBCs. Now the formation of RBCs is actually known as erythropoiesis. That is an important point. And they are most abundant of all the cells in the blood, and there are almost 5 million to 5.5 million of RBCs. RBCs formed in the red bone marrow are in the adults. RBCs are devoid of nucleus in most of the mammals and they are biconcave in shape. They have a red color, iron containing complex protein called hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is actually the pigment which gives them red color. And then a healthy individual has almost 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin in every 100 ml of blood. That is important. These molecules play a significant role in the transport of respiratory gases such as oxygen, etc. RBCs have an average lifespan of 120 days. After that, they are destroyed by something known as spleen, which is the graveyard of RBCs. Leukocytes. Leukocytes are also known as the white blood cells as they are colorless due to the lack of hemoglobin pigment. They are nucleated. They are relatively less in number. They are just 6,000 to 8,000 millimeter cube of blood. Leukocytes are generally short-lived where they have two main categories of WBCs, granulites and agranulocytes. Neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils are different granulocytes, while leukocytes, lymphocytes and monocytes are agranulocytes. Neutrophils are the most abundant cells, which is of 60 to 65% of them. Neutrophils and monocytes are actually 6 to 8% and they are phagocytic in nature, which helps to destroy foreign organisms entering the body. Basophils secrete histamine, serotonin and heparin. Basophil is actually the anti-inflammatory. That is actually the, when we have any kind of allergic responses, an anti-allergent is being secreted by our immune system. That is histamine, serotonin, heparin, etc. Now, eosinophil is actually 2 to 3% is eosinophil, which resist infections associated with allergic reactions. Lymphocytes, which is 20 to 25%, are of the two major types, B lymphocyte and T lymphocyte. B is for bone and T is for the responses of the body. Platelets are also called the thrombocytes, which means the cell fragments produced from the megakaryocytes, which means they are special cells in the bone marrow. Normally contains almost 1,50,000 to 3,50,000 platelets millimeter per cube. Platelets can release a variety of substances, most of which is included in clotting or co-clotting or coagulation of blood. A reduction in the number can actually lead to clotting disorders, which will lead to excessive loss of blood from the body. So clotting disorders, which means hemophilia, is one such. Now moving on to blood groups. As you know, the blood of the human differs in aspects throughout. ABO blood grouping. ABO blood grouping is based on the presence or absence of two surface antigens which can induce immune responses on the RBCs, namely A and B. Similarly, the plasma of different individuals contain two natural antibodies which are the proteins produced in response to antigens. Moving on to the table 18.1, which is important in summary of the entire paragraph. So, blood group A has an antigen A in RBCs. Now, antibodies will be anti-B, which is opposite to A. Now, the donors are actually A and O. O group is considered as a universal donor. Now, blood group B has an antigen B, antibody will be anti-A, and donors group will be B and O. O group is present everywhere. AB blood group has an antigen A or B, and antibodies is not there. That is why AB blood group is considered as the universal recipient. So donors group AB, ABO. Now blood group O, it doesn't have any antigen. That is why it's considered as a universal donor. And antibodies are antibody A and antibody B. Donor group will be only O. Actually, they might ask questions like which is the universal donor? Is it O positive or O negative? O negative is the answer. So the group which does not have any antigen is actually the universal donor. The one which does not have any antibody in the plasma is the universal recipient. Now moving on to RH grouping. RH grouping or rhesus grouping. Another antigen, RH antigen, similar to the one present in the rhesus monkeys, hence RH, is also observed on the surface of RBCs of majority, nearly 80% of the humans. Such individuals are called RH positive, and the one where this antigen is absent is called RH negative. RH negative. Now let us take an example of a father and a mother. So father is actually RR, which means it is RH positive. And if the mother is RH negative, the child will be RH positive. So, and then what happens is, in the first pregnancy, usually RH does not happen anything. RH is not much affected in the RBCs of the child. Whereas in second pregnancy, what happens is, since the first pregnancy, the antibodies were almost ready, but the preparation time took very long. So mostly in the second pregnancy, it affects the most. So in second pregnancy, the RH positive baby, what happens is our body knows what to produce. So the mother's body will produce certain antigens, RH antigens. But what happens is, as a result, it will destroy the baby's RBCs. And this could be fatal to the fetus, or it could cause severe anemia or jaundice to the baby. This condition is called erythroblastosis fetalis. This could be avoided by administering anti-RH bodies to the mother immediately after the delivery of the first baby, so that the second baby can be saved. Moving on to coagulation of blood. The very 2-3 lines are not much important. You can start with, you would have observed a dark reddish brown scum formed at the site of a cut or an injury over a period of time. It is a clot or a coagulum formed mainly, which is a network of thread called fibrins, in which dead and damaged formed elements of the blood are trapped. Fibrins are actually formed by the conversion of inactive fibrinogen. Now, you need to remember which was the fibrinogen was a major protein which was present in the plasma, and fibrinogen is actually a clotting factor to the blood. So these fibrinogen secreted fibers in order to trap all the dead materials or elements which is formed. And then in the plasma, so these fibrins are actually activated by the enzyme thrombin. Thrombins in turn are formed from another inactive substance which is present in the plasma, prothrombin. So prothrombin activates thrombin. Thrombin activates the fibers which is present in the fibrinogen. That is clear. Another enzyme complex, thrombokinase, is required for the above reaction. This complex is formed by a series of linked enzymatic reactions. That is why it is known as cascade process, involving a number of factors present in the plasma in an inactive state. An injury or a trauma stimulates the platelets in the blood to release certain factors which activate the mechanism of coagulation. Certain factors by the tissues at the site of injury can also initiate coagulation. Calcium ions play an important role in clotting. So on to topic number 2, that is lymph, which is the tissue fluid. As blood passes through the capillaries in the blood, some water along with many small water-soluble substances move out into spaces between the cells or leaving a larger protein, most of the formed elements, into the blood vessel. This fluid released out is called the interstitial fluid or the tissue fluid. So, exchange of nutrients, gases, etc. between the blood is the cells always occurring in this fluid. An elaborate network of vessels called the lymphatic system collect the fluid and drains it back to the major veins. The fluid present in the lymphatic system is called the lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid containing specialized lymphocytes which are responsible for the immune responses in the body. Lymph is also important for the carrier of nutrients, hormones, etc. Fats are observed through lymph in the lacteals present in the intestinal villi. Circulatory pathway, you don't need to read that much. I'll give you a very small summary, which includes the important points actually. So there are 2 types of circulatory pathway. One is open, one is closed. Moving on to open. Open is actually where the blood flows through the open spaces, and these open spaces are called sinuses. Example, arthropod or mollusk. When it comes to closed circulatory system, here the blood flows through closed network of blood vessels. Example, annelids in arthropod. Now, all vertebrates possess a muscular chambered heart. Now, fishes are actually 2-chambered, which means 1 atria and 1 ventricle. Amphibians and reptiles have 3-chamber, which means 2 atria and 1 ventricle. When it comes to crocodile, aves and mammals, it is 4-chambered heart, which means 2 auricle and 1 ventricle. You need to remember that in the animal kingdom chapter, it's very well mentioned that crocodile is the only reptile with 4-chambered heart. Now moving on, single circulation. Single circulation means it's just like 1 round, which means 2-chambered like fishes. Incomplete double circulation like amphibians and reptiles. Then mixing, incomplete double circulation means it is 3-chambered. It's not complete. If it needs to be complete double circulation, that means it needs to have 4-chambered heart like to crocodiles, aves and mammals. Now we'll move on to the human circulatory system. So the human circulatory system is equal to the heart plus blood vessels plus the blood. Now, human heart. Human heart is actually mesodermal in origin. It is situated in the thoracic cavity between the lungs and it is slightly tilted to the left. It is covered by a double-walled pericardium. It has a structure of the heart, as you can see in figure 18.2 is very important, and make sure that you draw and learn it thoroughly. Our heart is 4-chambered. That means we have 2 atria on the upper part and 2 ventricle as the lower chamber. Now, as we know, when we observe the picture of the heart, we can actually see it is 4 chambers. It has a left atria, a right atria, left ventricle and a right ventricle. Now, we need to see that there is a division which divides them into right atria and left atria. So, the right and left atria, that is the upper chamber, is divided by the atrial septum. Now, the one which is the lower chamber, that is the left ventricle, and the right ventricle is actually divided by a interventricular septum. Now, the atrium and the ventricle of the same side are also separated by a thick fibrous tissue which is called the atrioventricular septum. Septum is actually division. Everywhere septum remains the same. Now, it is separated by, okay. However, each of these septa are provided with an opening through which the two chambers of the same side are connected. The opening between the right atria and the right ventricle is guarded by a valve. Now, you might be thinking, what is a valve? Actually, valve prevents the backflow of blood. That is why a valve is present between the right atria and the right ventricle. Now we are moving on. So when we move down, we see a valve, and that valve between the right atria and the right ventricle is actually called the tricuspid valve. Whereas on the other side, between the left atria and the left ventricle is actually the bicuspid valve. Or it is also known as the mitral valve, which guards the opening between the left atria and the left ventricle. Now, the openings of the right and left ventricles into the pulmonary artery and the aorta is provided with the semilunar valves. The valves of the heart allows the flow of blood only in the same direction, from the atria to the ventricles and from the ventricles to the pulmonary artery or aorta. Next paragraph, they're talking about the heartbeat rate, how it is produced or anything. The entire heart is made up of cardiac muscle. Now, cardiac muscle is actually involuntary in nature. It is striated, etc. Now, the walls of the ventricles are much thicker than the atria because a specialized cardiac musculature called the nodal tissue is also distributed in the heart. Patch of the tissue is present in the right upper corner of the right atria, which is called the sinoatrial node. Another mass of tissue is seen in the lower left corner of the right atria, that is actually the atrioventricular node. If you observe a figure 18.2, you will notice a yellow lining, yellow circular and a yellow lines actually. So the very first one is the sinoatrial node, which initiates or gives you signals, and then comes the atrioventricular node. Atrioventricular node actually give rise to two fibers, that is actually bundle of his is actually the bundle of fibers. Now these bundle of fibers actually give rise to Purkinje fibers, and which is a nodal musculature which has the ability to generate action potentials without any external stimuli, and it is auto-excitable. Now here SA, that is SA node is actually the sinoatrial node. It can generate the action potential about 70 to 75 per minute. Now, it is responsible for initiating and maintaining the rhythmic contractile. That is why the SA node is known as the pacemaker, and the AV node is known as the pace setter. Therefore, our heart normally beats 70 to 75 times in a minute. Now we are moving on to a very important part, that is the cardiac cycle. Let's learn the cardiac cycle as a story. So at the relaxation stage, what happens is our heart is at a joint diastole, and it stays in a joint diastole stage for almost 0.4 seconds. And this is actually like ventricular filling, which means the blood enters through the right atrium and the left atrium. Then what happens is from the right atrium and the left atrium, it flows down to the ventricles. That is why it is known as ventricular filling. And then what happens is, as a result, while filling, the tricuspid and the bicuspid valve is opening. So here in the relaxation stage, that is the joint diastole, 80% of filling takes place. Now moving on to the second part, that is the atrial systole. Atrial systole is also ventricular filling, but only 20% of the rest of the filling takes place here. So here the tricuspid bicuspid valve is also open like the joint diastole, but here it only takes place, this 20% filling takes place only for 0.1 second. So first it starts with the joint diastole, then it goes to the atrial systole, from the atrial systole it goes to the atrial diastole. Diastole, you should always remember, that is the resting stage. So Atrium, now after filling, it wants to take rest. So what happens is the atrium will take rest for almost 0.7 seconds. Now, we are moving on to the ventricular systole. Ventricular systole, what happens is the blood tries to go upward. Now, what happens here is that, see, we have something known as valve which prevents the flow of blood. Backward flow of blood is valve is present. That is why, to prevent the backward flow, our valve is present. So here what happens is, as a result, our bicuspid and bicuspid valves are closed and our semilunar valve gets open. So as a result, blood flows to the aorta and pulmonary artery. Now that is the end with ventricular systole. Now ventricular diastole means it is for just for 0.5 seconds. It is like the closure of semilunar valve. That is the dub sound. So the lub sound is for the systole, ventricular systole, and the dub sound is for the ventricular diastole. I'll just show you a picture of the note on the screen so that it's easy for you. Make sure that you note it down so while revising it is easy. So now we are moving on to the cardiac output. Cardiac output is actually equal to the stroke volume, so into the heart rate. Now you'll be thinking, what is stroke volume? Stroke volume is actually end diastolic volume minus the end systolic volume. So what is the volume after the resting stage and after what is the volume after systolic stage is actually the stroke volume. That is the cardiac output. Now we are moving on to a very important part, that is electrocardiograph, also known as the ECG. Now in the graph, you will actually see in page number 286, figure 18.3. It is very important figure. It has asked in a lot of ways in the questions, actually in the past papers. So P, Q, R, S, T, that is how the letters have been given. So P position is actually the depolarization of the atria, which means it is the atrial contraction. So the part from P to Q is atrial systole. So P, I repeat again, P means depolarization of the atria. Then comes Q, R and S. You can see it is actually a big wave coming. That is also depolarization, but it is not of atria, but it is ventricles. So QRS is actually the depolarization of the ventricles, which is ventricular systole. Now, when it comes to after S, it is T. So T is actually the repolarization of the ventricle itself, but it is a joint diastole. So from S to T, it's actually ventricular systole. So I'm repeating it again. P means it is depolarization of the atria, which is atrial systole from P to Q. And then from QRS is actually depolarization of the ventricle, which means ventricular systole. And then comes T, which is actually repolarization of the ventricle, which is a joint diastole. And from point S to the graph T is actually ventricular systole. Now moving on to double circulation. Now, also in the description, I will just attach a picture of double circulation note. Also, it is just it's very small note, which is, it's like a flashcard which you can read it and memorize it easily. So, double circulation. Imagine right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. So, imagine a wave from right ventricle to left atrium is actually known as, that circulation is known as pulmonary circulation, which means the circulation which takes place between the lungs. That is, the right ventricle to the left atrium is the pulmonary circulation. That is from RV to LA. Then from the right atrium to the left ventricle is actually the body circulation. That type of circulation is known as the systemic circulation. So these two circulation together, it is known as double circulation. I hope things are clear, very clear right now. And there is also a third type of circulation which is known as coronary circulation. That is the coronary artery to the heart deoxygenates to the coronary sinus. Sinus means the pressure points. Now, in the textbook, they have mentioned about the lining and everything that is important. I'll just read it out again. So the blood flows strictly in a fixed route through the blood vessels, and basically each artery vein consists of 3 layers of the inner lining of the squamous epithelium, that is the tunica intima, a middle layer of a smooth muscle and elastic fibers, which is the tunica media, and an external layer which is the tunica externa. So tunica intima, tunica media, and tunica externa. And then after that, this much is not much of important. That is what I told you in just a short brief in about double circulation. Come to the very last line, that is, a unique vascular connection exists between the digestive system and the liver, and that is known as the hepatic portal system. The hepatic portal system vein carries blood from the intestine to the liver before it is being delivered to the systemic circulation, that means body circulation. A special coronary system of blood vessels is present in our body exclusively for the circulation of blood to and from the cardiac musculature. Cardiac musculature, which means our heart, that is a cardiac muscle. So, for this system, it is known as the coronary circulation. So hepatic portal vein to supply blood and the nutrients and everything to the vein carries the blood from the intestine to the liver, and that is it with that. And then moving on to the regulation of cardiac activity. So we all know that our heart is myogenic, which means our heart is regulated intrinsically, which means auto-regulated by special muscles such as nodal tissue. That is why it is known as myogenic. A special neural center, that is the medulla oblongata, can moderate the cardiac function through autonomous nervous system, that is the ANS, and neural signals through which the strength of the ventricular contraction and thereby cardiac output. On the other hand, there is also known as parasympathetic neural system. It decreases the rate of heartbeat and speed of conduction of action potential, thereby more will be the cardiac output. So adrenal medullary hormones can also increase the cardiac output. Now the only hormone which is present in the heart is actually ANF, which means atrial natriuretic factor. Now disorders of the circulatory system, high blood pressure, which is hypertension, and then comes coronary artery disease. It is also referred to as osteosclerosis, which affects the vessels but the supply of the blood to heart muscle. It is caused by the deposit of calcium, fat and cholesterol in fibrous tissues, which makes the lumen of the arteries more narrow. Angina pectoris is actually acute chest pain because of the lack of oxygen reaching our heart muscle. It can affect any age, but now these days all the people can be affected with this. Heart failure, which means a state where the heart is not pumping blood effectively to reach the requirements, and that is it. Heart failure is not as the same as cardiac arrest or heart attack. See, another term which is given in heart failure is actually congestive heart failure, which means when our heart is not pumping blood effectively enough to meet the body needs, it's called this, because congestion of the lungs is one of the main symptoms of this disease. That doesn't mean it is not cardiac arrest, which means cardiac arrest, what it is actually, the heart is completely stopping there. Heart attack is actually a situation when the heart muscle is suddenly damaged by inadequate blood supply. So thank you so much for listening. Hope things are thorough. If you have any doubts, please do comment down below. I'm ready to help you all. Same time, please do a choti help for me, that is, do subscribe and share it with your friends if you find it helpful. And thank you so much, and please do comment down below so that I can know what all things are being required as changes.